After his defeat, Napoleon Bonaparte was exiled not once but twice. First to Elba in 1814 and then, after his brief return and final defeat at Waterloo, to the remote island of Saint Helena. Given the chaos he caused across Europe and the threat he posed even in exile, why wasn't he simply executed to prevent any future return? In 1814, after the coalition forces marched into Paris, the French Senate declared Napoleon deposed. Though he wanted to continue fighting, his own generals refused, forcing him to step down. The victorious powers Russia, Prussia, Austria, and Britain were divided on his fate. Ultimately, they agreed to exile him to Elba on the condition that he renounce his claim to the French throne. He was allowed to retain the title of emperor and given sovereignty over the small Mediterranean island, along with a modest military force. Britain, however, was unhappy with this decision. The British government viewed Napoleon's entire reign as illegitimate and preferred imprisoning him rather than allowing him to rule over even a small island. Nevertheless, Napoleon was sent to Elba, where he implemented reforms and maintained a degree of political and military control. But, as history shows, exile was not enough to keep him in check. Less than a year later, in 1815, Napoleon escaped from Elba and returned to France. Greeted as a hero, he quickly gathered an army and launched his final campaign. His return, known as the 100 Days, saw him regain power and march against the Allied forces once again. However, this led to the Battle of Waterloo, where he was decisively defeated by the British and Prussian forces. With his ambitions crushed for the final time, the Allies knew they could not take any chances. Despite being a major threat, Napoleon was not executed for several reasons. First, the British feared making him a martyr, which could inspire uprisings in France and destabilize the weak Bourbon monarchy. Execution might have created a bigger political crisis than exile. Second, the Allies disagreed on his fate. Russia and Austria had allied with him before and opposed execution, fearing it would set a dangerous precedent for deposed rulers. Third, while Prussian generals openly called for Napoleon's execution, arguing that exile was too lenient, the Prussian king did not fully support this stance. Finally, Napoleon surrendered to the British, hoping for asylum. Though they denied it, they also refused to hand him over for execution. Instead, they chose exile to ensure he never returned to power. This time, the Allies made sure Napoleon could never return. He was sent to Saint Helena, an isolated island in the South Atlantic, more than 1,200 miles from the nearest mainland. Under constant British surveillance, he lived in strict confinement, writing memoirs and reflecting on his legacy. Unlike Elba, Saint Helena offered no opportunity for escape, and Napoleon remained there under house arrest until his death in 1821.